Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday Mindset Meeting. My name is Coach Kalloo with Change My Business Coaching, and my co-host this morning is Moji Ajele. She's Executive Director for BNI Southern Alberta. Now, if you were participating this morning live with us, you would have recognized that Moji was not able to attend to participate as my co-host this morning. But like they say, all meetings sometimes must go on. And so we continue the meeting without Moji until later on. I was able to connect with Moji to find out that she was safe. However, something else happened. And I'm going to allow Moji to share her story a little bit later on because I was able to record the networking portion with Moji. And then I will include that right after the original recording from this morning's Monday Mindset Meeting. So do stay tuned so you could actually hear what Moji had to say as to why she missed the call, missed our meeting this morning, and also some tips that she had about networking that I did not want you guys to miss. So let's get started. I want to just talk a little bit about the rundown of the meeting today. Today's meeting is really going to be about 10-15 minutes talking about networking. What does that look like? How do you even network in this day and age? And so Moji is going to be joining us shortly, and to be able to do that. And again, we'll open up for a Q&A for about 10 minutes or so, Q&A. So if you have some questions about networking specifically, please share those. We want to be able to get that information going there. And also about the last 5 minutes or so, we will use it to wrap up. And we'll talk a little bit about the next co-host coming up and going from there. So like, all meetings must go on. So let's just get right into networking. So let's talk a little bit about networking. So what's happening for a lot of people when we think about networking, there's a lot of moving pieces on that. Networking is around how do we stay connected. We all know that, for a lot of people that we do business with, there has to be some form of connection. Okay, there's another. We all know there's a few different, I saw something there in the chat room, what's going on. We all know that when we network with people, that's how we're growing a business. There's lots of statistics out there. We know about 87% of the stats says that, a lot of people do business with referral. There's some form of networking that's happening. There's many groups. Obviously, the one that I know, like, and trust is BNI. And so BNI is a great way for you guys to be able to network and for you to be able to connect with other people. What does that feel like when you are networking with people you know, like, and trust? Is it easier to do business or not? Right now, with COVID-19 going on, there's a lot of people who had to change their game a little bit and to understand a little bit how to network differently and if that's worth it or not. How do you stay connected? Here's one of the things I've recognized. If I could say anything about network, is about staying top of mind. The number one thing in any networking is staying top of mind. So even when you say hello to someone, you're staying top of mind. When you engage someone else, you're staying top of mind. I am curious, I'd love to see in the chat room, what are some key takeaways that you have time tested and true being a networker? What do you do very well? What are some of the things that you'd like to share with other people? I'd love to engage and see where everyone's at with that network. And like I said, when networking, staying top of mind is number one. And by the end of this meeting, I want to give you some tips on how to stay top of mind, going from there. So let's just see what people are saying here about how they're networking. Some private stuff is in here. Great. That's good. Wonderful. Perfect. Here's the thing that I find that most people will struggle with networking. They're waiting for the perfect time. They're waiting for the right words. They get caught up in how do I say it? What if am I going to be rejected? What if someone doesn't like me? So we start all these stories, which comes back to our mindset. We start all these stories in our head about networking, right? Of what the other's going to say. I want you sometimes, when you feel that you're getting stuck, I want you to get into that moment and saying to yourself, are my thoughts facts or feelings? Is what I'm saying right now is actually true or not? If it's facts, then you have something factual to know that you did get rejected. Maybe that's someone that you don't need to be able to talk to. Or if it's just feelings, what's getting in the way of that? Networking is crucial. And I want to just talk a little bit specifically about some of the tips that you can take in a second. Let's just see. Uh, John here comments, increase knowledge of other business. Yeah, practices. So that's a great part of it too, increasing your knowledge of other people's business. How are you going to know someone else's business if you don't talk to them? How are you going to really find out about a person if you don't actually engage them? Right? We've heard the saying before, know, like, and trust. People do business with people who they know, like, and trust. But listen, Moji often say this. I remember Moji was the first person who say that, and she once said, my mother knows, likes, and trusts me, but she doesn't refer business to me, right? So to John's point, they have to go even further by understanding a little bit more around your business, and by networking, you create that instant connection for people to connect with you. One of the things that Moji and I talked about before is when we get all these messages, when people want to network with us or people send us LinkedIn messages, what we find is that it's very robotic, right? Do you find that? It's a copy and paste, right? Hi, I can help you do this in your business. Hi, I'd like to know more about your business. Remember, one of the things that Moji often say is, remember you're dealing with a person. You're dealing with a person. So when you want to network, there's something about you and that other person that's important for you to be able to connect with. You're dealing with a person. And so when you're networking online or you're networking in person, approach it as a person. Besides the hello, besides making sure you're clear with the person about understanding their business and your business, but become naturally curious about that person. You know how a 2-year-old does it, right? They ask you about why, and then why, and then why. They're asking a lot of questions because they're naturally curious. And so we can learn something from a 2-year-old, right? But it's about becoming quite curious about the person. Even though you're online and though you're on LinkedIn, whatever social media you're using right now, there's a lot of people out there. Become curious and find out about them. Don't copy and paste. And if you have a core script that you're using to connect with people, that's fine. There's no problem. There's no problem with that. Is you want to make it customized. You want to say, for example, Dale, I saw this article that you did. I really like this piece about it. Thank you. I'd like to know more specifically about this area of your business. How do you feel about this that's happening right now? Networking online is not as difficult, right? Some would even say it's probably a little bit easier. Don't try to sell someone. No one is interested in being sold to. But here's what's interesting. But we do love to buy, right? We don't like to be sold to, but we do love to buy. And people buy from people they trust. People buy from people they know they've had some form of connection. And how do you trust someone? That is really now sometimes the key. So I'm just curious, what are some of your activities that you have about networking or strategies that you network? And I'm going to pick on someone here. Who would like to speak? How about Christopher Lawrence? Maybe you could share with us, because you had an interesting blog actually about online being able to being sold to by online. So let's just unmute you and see. Go ahead.
Sorry, my mic was not working properly. Would you mind repeating the question, please?
Yes, just how do you network right now? How are you networking?
Thank you, Kyle. Yes.
Go ahead.
I have found that this time is perfect being able to reach out to people and to be able to connect via Zoom meetings, via Facebook Lives. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I did a Facebook Live, And I invited this person I hardly ever talked to, and she shared that she's been able to raise $1,450 for frontline nurses.
Mhm.
I think we built a deep connection by, carrying on that conversation and finding out how exactly she did that. So it's no different than having those chai conversations or reaching out via social media and really finding out where are they at, what are they doing right now. And the big thing right now is that because of this social isolation, it's really impacting people. So reaching out and saying, "Are you okay?" That is the biggest thing. And that's where you get the conversation starting. That's where the trust happens that you talked about.
Mhm.
And go deeper and find out what exactly can you do to help me, perhaps, or do you know anybody else
I sent him my link
to?
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
because he couldn't
Great.
find
Thank you so much for that, Alnor. It shows up your name is Christopher Lawrence, but you're not Christopher Lawrence. But Alnor, that's really good information. Okay, will the real Christopher Lawrence please stand up and talk about your experience of being connected over LinkedIn?
Yes, hello. Hi, team. Oh, you caught me frying eggs, so I didn't know I was going to be doing this today. Which tells me I think your co-host might have forgotten about your meeting this morning. Yeah, listen, I don't know about the rest of you, but probably on average once a day right now, I'm at least once a day, probably up to 5 times a day, I'm getting messages on LinkedIn with people wanting to network and connect. But the big thing is that they're not trying to actually build a relationship. They're just trying to sell me something. And that's what so I don't know if any of you saw it, but I did put a video post on LinkedIn, and I just have a copy paste standard response, which is, if you're looking to sell me something, I'm not interested, but if you're looking to build a relationship, then I'm interested. So so I think that there's something to be said here about, and it's too bad Moji's not here, because I'd be really interested in her perspective about networking online right now. So how do you do that in such a way that, you're reaching out and people don't think that you're trying to sell them something, but then also, how do you filter through all the garbage? Because there's a lot of garbage out there. In all honesty, it's 1 to 5 times a day right now that I'm getting random links, people trying to sell to me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christopher, for sharing that, and the real Christopher Lawrence for sharing that. Thank you. Christopher, you actually brought up a really interesting point, is how to network online. And here's some tips that I'd like to share with you guys when we talk about keep this at top of mind is, for example, let's just use and there's lots of LinkedIn experts on here. Let's just use LinkedIn as an example of networking online. Is you want to be able to stay top of mind. And how you do that is I want you to be able to like and comment. It's not just enough just to like someone's article, and it has to be relatable. So I'm not saying go and just like, make it a relatable to yourself. So go onto someone, when you're on your LinkedIn, you see those different feed and there's people in your network, you go and like, and you want to also add a comment. And Alnor, who's a guru on LinkedIn by any means, and the Q&A, I'd love to hear his perspective as well, even though he's going to be co-hosting next week. But go and like and comment. And when you're commenting, make it relatable. It's not just thank you for this, boom. It's thank you for this piece of article. Thank you for this 1 or 2 information that you got. Or by reading this article or post, here's my experience, or here's what I took away from it. So again, adding that, because when you do that, you will stay top of mind, right? The thing for a lot of people is that, I often talk about the 6-step approach, right? Step 6 is the goal, the vision, the success, right? But there's all these other steps that's leading up to step 6. And so when you stay top of mind and you do some of that engagement, liking, commenting, sharing that person's information, you start staying top of mind in their feed. So that way they see you. So by the time you want to reach out to someone, they will have already seen you. right? So you're building trust by showing up consistently. We do that very well in BNI as well, by showing up each week over week. And here's a piece that Christopher Lawrence, my business partner as well, talks about, is take imperfect inspired actions. Don't wait for that perfect moment. Like I was just talking to, people are always waiting for that perfect thing, or they feel they need to have confidence. Confidence comes after, right? You've got to do step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way until step 6. So when you are taking that imperfect inspired action, sometimes it's just taking that one like comment. Maybe it's hitting a like, then adding a comment, then adding more information in your comment. And my challenge, this is the takeaway for today, is I like you to be able to do that at least once a day. Make that habitual for yourself. If you're able to do that at least once a day, you will be in a better position to creating that habit of, again, staying top of mind. So that's really kind of what I want to be able to see. And so when you take a look at that, so again, I'm curious, what are some of your tips for networking online? I'd love to see some suggestions in the chat box, and then I want to open this for some Q&A. And while you guys are putting your thoughts together, I'm going to bring Eleanor back on just to hear if those tips that I just gave on LinkedIn was sound, and if that's something that's working for you guys as well. So thank you for that. Alnor, let's just get you unmuted there. Go ahead, Alnor.
I was hoping to be Christopher Lawrence again, but I guess I will just have to be, I am Alnor. You shared excellent points there. Thank you so much, Kyle. The thing is that both you and Christopher already said this, that there's so much desperation out there. And when there's desperation, people shy away. You seem like a shady salesperson. I don't know how to say that any other way. And I too get those messages, and sometimes it's just like they've copied and pasted. Just a new one. I am a lead generation. They've got 80 connections, and they're teaching me how to sell LinkedIn. That's wonderful. I really appreciate you wanting to do that. The biggest thing is that you touched on this, is that showing up. And when you show up on other people's posts, you are showing that you're engaged. Now, the biggest thing over here, which I'm going to be talking about next week, is mental health. And we are spending even more and more time online, and we're spending more and more time in the evenings at night, and that blue light impacts our mental health. So make it a point to stay online early in the morning in your geographical area. The reason for this, if you're connecting with people in your geographical area, building those touching points, they are most likely going to be there. If you're going to be looking for a job, the recruiters and HR people are actually going to be putting on those work hours on LinkedIn. And so instead of pumping out that resume and spraying and praying, if you're looking for a job or you're looking for clients, you are marketing. And I love what you said. It's not about saying that, hey, buy from me. It's like showing the value you provide. And by showing the value, by showing what exactly are you doing in creating that value. So talking talking, as I say, on the post, meaning you're carrying on conversations. I will put this in the chat. You don't have to agree, but be polite. You never know. The LinkedIn talks about 3 degrees of separation. We know 6 degrees. Everybody seems to be connected these days. And you may say, well, I don't want to connect with anybody from Timbuktu. Well, in Timbuktu is relatives to somebody who would be buying from you, and they say, well, look, this person does this. Boom, there's that connection that can happen. So open your eyes, have your profile picture visible, because I don't like to, even in those big networking face-to-face, I don't like to go talk to somebody with a brown paper bag on the having that profile picture, and not one, well, if you looked fantastic 10 years ago with, lots more hair, sorry there, Kyle, That is the picture that needs to show up. I now
Perfect.
picture right now because 10 years ago I used to be 380 pounds. I went to change my picture because I've lost some more weight since that one was taken. So thank you, thank you again for asking me to just share a few of the points. I didn't want to hog everything here.
No worries, that's all good. Thank you so much, Alnor, and looking forward to hearing about the impact on that mental health. The other thing too, and we've heard it, people are saying, using hashtags, showing pictures, sometimes it's not always about business. And there's quite a few, if you do a good job at your videos and share your personal stories, there's something when you're calling out to a client, I'll just say this and just wrapping up from some key points here, is when you call a prospect or even a client and you're checking in on them, showing up is just saying, hey, listen, I just want to check in on you. How are you doing? Right? And sometimes you can say either, what is your struggle right now? If you know them quite well, you can say, what's your struggle right now? And then lead into, how can I help? Right? But if you don't know them quite well and someone, maybe it's just an acquaintance, maybe you should ask that question. If there's one thing I could help you with, what would that be? Because sometimes people may not show up right away and say, oh yeah, here are all my problems. Because there's two things that's impacting them. There's that fear around, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Or two, they may feel shame, which is about being vulnerable. Trust, when you want to increase trust, you need to show vulnerability. That is the fastest way to be able to share that. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again on Monday Mindset Meeting. We do have Moji Ajele, who's Executive Director with BNI Southern Alberta, and she's just going to be able to speak to us. She was not able to join us this morning live. However, we did end up connecting and continuing the conversation around a network. So, Moji, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll just jump right in and talk about networking. And I'll share with you a little bit about what came up this morning, and maybe you could also be able to expand.
Really appreciate that. And thank you, Kyle, for the opportunity to be on the show, but even more so for the opportunity to do this recording with you. For those of you that are listening, I woke up this morning to that horrible sinking feeling of what did I do? Because I slept through my alarm, something that I can't remember when last something like that happened to me. Terrified, I called Kyle and I experienced nothing but grace. And so, again, one of those things, I know we haven't started the conversation around networking, but part of what I love about networking is it allows me to surround myself with people, people like Kyle, people who, when things go bad, are able to give me the grace. And his gift of grace is something, like I said to him earlier, that I'm able to take into my day and be able to pay it forward to someone else, hopefully when that time comes. So I'm really pleased to be here and looking forward to having a very great, a stimulating conversation with you this morning, Kyle.
Moji, thank you so much for that, and I appreciate that as well, and that is the power of a network, right? Because I think we're beyond know, like, and trust. And so one of the things I mentioned this morning was a vulnerability. And I think, when we talk about increasing trust, people want to do business with people they trust, right? And so obviously it's great when we have that in our network. And I appreciate you actually showing us what vulnerability looked like by admitting, says, hey, this is what happened to me. There's nothing I could do about it. It's just what happens, and I'm glad that you and I were able to talk a little bit prior to this morning. So I was able to add one or two points that we may just get into again. So with everything said and done, Moji, one of the things that I think a lot of people are curious about is, in light of COVID or even pre and post, networking is not going to go away anytime soon. So from your perspective, what is that number one thing, or what is that area of networking that you would like to help us get some clarity on, as well as, do we change anything when we're networking online?
Okay, so let's start with the fact that you said networking is not going anywhere. Actually, if anything, we need to network more, because even those people you would have run into serendipitously we no longer have those opportunities. So more than ever, we need to be reaching out to the members of our network. More than ever, we need to be building and strengthening our networks. So absolutely, networking is not going anywhere. But the one thing that I believe that we need in order to be effective in our networking is just remembering that the people that you are looking to connect with, whether in person on Zoom like this, or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, whatever avenues you use to connect to your network, that they are real people, that those people don't become numbers in your mind. It's not about how many LinkedIn connections you have. It's who are you able to reach out to connect with in a very real way. And a good example comes to my mind. A gentleman had reached out to me about a month and a half ago to connect on LinkedIn and invited me to attend this network of his and effectively join it. And I looked at the invitation. It was very obvious to me that they had no idea, even though I had put right there on LinkedIn that I am an executive director with BNI, everything's right there, forthright. They're a competitor of mine, and they wanted me to be part of their network, which is literally impossible. But it's one of those things that just reminds me that sometimes we objectify people and we forget that they are human beings. If you remember that the people you're connecting with are human like you, they bleed when you cut them, they have feelings, it makes a huge difference in your effectiveness in connecting with them. And I honestly believe that that's one of the most powerful things that can help you be effective in networking.
I love that you said that about the human side, but I think what's happening, Moji, maybe is that they're trying to save time because they know sometimes some people are still doing the numbers game, right? Talk to 500 people, send out 500 messages, and then 10 of them will respond to you, then 2 of them will take a call. So I think there's some people, which personally, I don't like that game because I'm more about if I could have 1 or 2 quality connections with a person, I am further ahead than if I can say, wave a flag, I spoke to 1,000 people today. I sent 1,000 emails, messages today. So with that, in retrospect, how can someone have that human connection in their networking? Is there 1 or 2 things that you feel must be included?
So the first thing is to just, we all know the golden rule, right? It's regardless of what faith you are of, there is something about that golden rule there. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. How did you feel when you received that card from somebody at a meeting where they were so busy handing those cards out, they didn't even look you in the eye to acknowledge you? Look, just think about the way things feel when they're done to you and be that person who thinks, I don't want to treat people that way because I don't like the way I feel when people treat me that way. So I think for me, that's just the basic factor. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. The other thing you need to remember is, how's it working for you? When you handed out those 1,000 cards or whatever, and that's why a lot of people say networking doesn't work. That's because they think of networking more like hunting, whereas it's more like farming. The farmer puts out their seed. If they go there every other day and dig it up to try and see if it's going to grow, it's not going to happen, right? It takes a while. They water it, they nurture it, they weed it. And that's the way it is with our relationships. You don't ask a woman to marry you the first day you meet her. It's not going to go well, right? You need to nurture that relationship. It's the same way with networking. Some of us ask too quickly for the sale, and people look at us and, they kind of give us that, the palms up, and we wonder, why aren't they buying what I'm selling? It's because, like you said at the beginning, that know, like, trust, especially if you're more of a consultant or someone who has a higher ticket item, you gotta take time to build the relationship.
I really love that. There's a couple of things that pops into my mind when I think many moons ago, because we've known each other for a long time, and many moons ago, we talk about that business cards. And I don't know if you know this, Moji, but what we do differently with a business card, every time someone asks me for a business card, I stop and I say, why do you want it? What are you going to do with the business card? Because then I want to be able to write on it to say as a trigger that we met here, or when are you going to call? And so that way we actually put a purpose to it.
I love
And
that.
And so I every time I give out a business card, someone wants a business card, or even when I take someone else's business card, I want to be known, and I write on it, I met you here, I'm going to give you a call next Tuesday, and then I give the card or whatever the case may be. So then that way they'll have it. And the other piece that you mentioned is really about, making sure that when you're connecting with someone, that you really go beyond that place of just getting your name and, trying to sell you something, but focus on farming. Being in BNI, we get that, we notice the difference because so many people out there are hunting. So farming is really about, planting that seed, nurture it, right? There's certain things that we know in natural law, you can't just throw seeds down and expect it, next day. But what are some great strategies on farming? Like, what are some things that you can tell people who just don't know that if they come from a place of they've always been hunting, how do they switch from hunting to farming?
Oh, love it. Um, I'm sure you have had a few people, maybe you meet them at different organizations, and from time to time, they actually tend to attend, a variety of meetings around town, but you see them coming and you're like, I don't want to get stuck with that person, because they are that person who, when they get you, they are going to talk your ears off, and you're not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. One of the biggest tools you have as someone who wants to build relationships are your ears. Dr. Ivan Meisner, who started BNI, he says a good networker has 2 ears and 1 mouth and uses them in that proportion. Be a listener. There's all kinds of courses around the professional world and around the world in general where they teach us how to speak. Very few that teach us how to actively listen. Most of us, when we listen, we're busy formulating answers. We're not truly listening. And so if you're that person who listens, you make a connection. You hear the things between the lines, the things that they've said, the things that they're not saying. The next time you see that person, you can refer to little Johnny's soccer team. You can refer to, an event that just happened in their life because you were listening. Just something that simple, but so incredibly powerful. Most of the time when I connect with someone, especially if I'm making a second or third connection, I am making references to a conversation we had, to someone in their life. I'm asking about their spouse, I'm asking about their kids, I'm asking about, their assistant, someone that they have shared information with me about. And people don't realize it, but it sends a very powerful message. You are important. You are worth it. You are worth my time and energy to get to know you. I really believe that that's a very powerful way to communicate with people that we care, simply listening to them. And the other thing too is, to be, as we're out and about, when you see something that could be of benefit to someone in your network, whether they've written an article on LinkedIn and you put in a quick like, or you put in a quick comment, or you see an article that you want to share with them, just doing things for people where you're not expecting anything in return. I once heard an illustration that I love to use when I do presentations. This gentleman said, if you lined up 200 people along a wall and you said to them, how can I help you? And you kept going from one to the next. He said, how many people will you reach before someone turns around and says, how can we help you in return? And he said, on the contrary, if you lined 200 people along the line and you started trying to sell to each and every one of them, how long before somebody kills you? Right? And so, in other words, that spirit of, I'm going to help you without expecting anything in return, it always comes back to you. You cannot stop it. It's that whole give us gain concept, right? Going around your day with that mindset of, how can I help you? How can I make your day better? Doing it without expecting anything in return. You're going to get it in spadefuls. Sorry. So yeah,
I
that's
really like that, Moji. This morning we talked about being naturally curious when you're engaging with someone. So when you talked about listening, you're listening to be curious. You're asking questions to understand, and also to that final point, there is to be able to give back. Because there's something magical about when you can help someone. Well, couple things. One, you feel good about it because you were able to help someone, and they feel so good about it to be able to receive. So Moji, thank you so much for taking the time and having this conversation. Before we go, we'd love to be able to give you an opportunity to, if someone wants to reach out to you or connect with you and explore this conversation even further, what is the best way for them to reach you?
The best way is my email address, just moji at bnisalberta.ca. And I respond to all my emails. I do process them myself, and would love to hear from your listeners this morning. And thank you again for the opportunity, Kyle. I truly appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Moji. You've done so much for so many. And so we appreciate you taking the time and actually sharing some of that stuff with everyone else. And so, as a quick little kind of wrap up, at the end of the day, when we're talking about connecting with people, remember you're talking to a human. You're connecting with another person. And so you need to be able to monitor and approach it that way by being real and authentic. The second part of that also is move from hunting to farming, planting those seeds and making sure it's very clear for everyone that you're interested in a long-term relationship versus a one-night stand. Those are my words, not Moji's, but you're interested in a long-term relationship. And then when you're connecting with people, is being able to listen, being naturally curious about what's being said, so that way later on you can be able to reference back, because you would have those quality conversation, and that level of curiosity is going to allow you to have a deeper connection with people. Because at the end of the day, when you can give to others and help others, one, you're going to feel good, and they're going to be feeling good about it, and they will find a way to want to give back to you. Moji, thank you once again. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
I appreciate you.
Thank you guys all for joining. Just a couple posts that Catherine's going to be showing up in your box right now. If you'd like to reach out to me, if you'd like to continue this conversation, by all means, my information is going to be in the chat box in a few moments, so you'll be able to see that. And also, if you missed last week's Monday Mindset meeting where we kicked it off with mindset, a great opportunity for you. Catherine will share that link as well for you to go and connect on that. We've heard from so many people who've been on it, and we're probably working on right now bringing back Ernest Barbaric to next month, so to be able to answer some of your things. This thing about networking is not going to end here. We're going to continue this conversation as well with another opportunity to bring that information forward. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all, and always looking for great ideas. So follow us on LinkedIn. Next week we will have Alnor Damji is going to talk about the mental health. He is also a guru with LinkedIn, so if you want to hear some tips and tricks on that as well, he'll be here. And then coming up on April the 27th, this guy over here, let me just move out of the way, is Christopher Lawrence. He's going to be my co-host on April the 27th, where he's going to talk about motivation, because to be honest with you, sometimes we're not as motivated right now, and so we want to be able to explore that. So like I said, thank you all for sharing and showing up today. That is the first step. Looking forward to seeing you next Monday. If you haven't registered, now is probably a good time to do so. Take care. Have a blessed day. Stay safe.